This is Block 10, the 60s, Section 3, Social Upheaval, with the section, the Sexual Revolution. The relationship between the sexes completely changed during the 1960s and 1970s as well. And it began really, for non-radicals, it began with the invention of the pill, the birth control pill. You know, women now could medically control when they got pregnant, which is a massive social change. The number of children that women were having dropped. Abortion laws liberalized, making the termination of unwanted pregnancies more common. Another huge thing that changed was divorce laws liberalized. You know, you could just, like today, you get divorced for pretty much no reason at all. Just, both people, or one, not even both, one person, one partner in the marriage wants a divorce, and voila, you can get a divorce. You see the posters, divorce, $300, all over the place. But divorce laws used to be a lot stricter. But those divorce laws were liberalized in the 1960s. Married couples could divorce for no cause. Women were, the cultural message aimed at women, as we're going to see, the cultural message aimed at women changed. That women were no longer simply expected to get married and raise a family, that women were now being encouraged that they didn't need a man, that they could work on their own, that they could have it all, that... And because of these things, marriage as a long-term partnership designed for the raising of children, which is kind of the traditional view of marriage. Like, what is marriage? Traditionally, it's a long-term partnership designed for the raising of children. And for all of these reasons, another huge reason, which we have talked about, is the husband as a provider was under assault, that the state now was providing more and more. Marriages that, might have stayed together for economic reasons, were no longer being kept together. Especially people dependent on welfare could get more welfare if they were not married, so people weren't getting married. That the whole institution came under fire. And people who kind of stuck to a traditional view of it kind of were looked at like the subject of this cartoon. Here's during the sexual revolution, Bradley hid out in Canada, which is kind of a play on draft dodgers going to Canada to avoid the draft. And there's poor old Bradley in his kind of old-fashioned suit and hat and tie, completely missed, the sexual revolution. That the women became much more forthright. Women became much more open to having sex before marriage because they could use the birth control pill. They could get an abortion. And the relationship between the sexes changed, that courting changed, marriage changed, how men and women saw each other changed, dating changed. It was one of those things, that you can't put a beginning date on it, but, the relationship between the sexes today in high school and college is infinitely different in a lot of ways than it was, before the sexual revolution started. That was for middle modern Americans. For the radicals themselves, marriage was one of those institutions that had to be smashed in order to revolutionize the system itself. And that the more you could do to smash marriage as an idea, and as an ideal for many American radicals, the better. That, among, SDS and hippies and all the other people who were actively rejecting traditional American, or Western even, rejecting traditional Western views on sex, marriage, and gender, were having just these enormous orgies filled with drugs and music and anonymous sex. Happened all the time and in many, many places. It's hard to discount how much the sexual revolution changed the United States and our society.